My name is Betty Williams, and I will never forget the night my 7-year-old grandson nearly lost his life at his own father's wedding. One moment he was smiling, quietly pushing his little red toy car across the tablecloth, and the next, his tiny hand gripped mine, trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice breaking, "let's leave right now. You didn't look under the table, did you?" Those words carved ice into my veins. My heart skipped. I bent slowly, lifted the pristine white tablecloth, and there it was, a folded slip of paper, small, but carrying enough cruelty to stop my breath. I opened it with shaking hands. The dim glow of candlelight revealed the message. Table 8 adds shrimp to the child's serving. My throat tightened. Leo, my sweet boy, is deathly allergic to shrimp. A single bite could kill him. This was no accident. It was a trap. And someone, right here in this glittering ballroom full of smiles and champagne, had planned to murder my grandson. If you're watching this right now, please don't scroll away. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of betrayal and revenge will reach, because what happened to me could happen to anyone, and silence can cost a life. I was sitting at table 8, surrounded by candlelight and the hum of conversation, pretending to enjoy what should have been a celebration. Crystal glasses sparkled under golden chandeliers. The jazz band played softly, weaving through the clinking of silverware and bursts of laughter. Around me, guests smiled, oblivious, raising glasses of champagne to toast to my son's new happiness. But my happiness had long since been buried. As I adjusted Leo's tiny bow tie and watched him concentrate on his toy car, memories of his mother, my late daughter-in-law, Maria, flooded my heart. Her absence weighed heavily tonight. This was Alex's second wedding, his second chance, and I wanted so badly to believe that Ava, his new bride, would love him and love Leo. Yet, from the moment I met her, something inside me stirred uneasily, as though a cold draft had slipped into my bones. She was beautiful, dazzling in her beaded gown, flashing a smile that looked rehearsed, perfect for photographs but hollow in truth. She posed endlessly with her friends, her hand never loosening from her wineglass, as though this wedding were a performance she had been rehearsing her entire life. And now this paper, these vile instructions, it was as if every unspoken fear in my heart had suddenly materialized. My chest tightened as I looked at Leo. His wide eyes, filled with panic far too heavy for a child, told me everything I needed to know. He felt it too. The danger, the malice hovering in this room disguised as celebration. I squeezed his icy little fingers. "It's all right, my love," I whispered, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Grandma's here." But inside my mind raced. Who had done this? Who would stoop so low as to target an innocent child on his father's wedding day? The laughter, the toasts, the music, they became muffled, like echoes from another world. For me, time slowed. My world narrowed until it was just me, my grandson, and the deadly secret I held in my trembling hand. I looked across the ballroom, my gaze sweeping over the guests. My son Alex stood tall in his navy blue suit, raising his glass with that same bright smile he had forced on himself ever since Maria died. He looked proud, even joyful, as though Ava's presence had finally filled the void in his heart. And Ava, there she was, radiant in her white gown, laughing with her bridesmaids. Her eyes briefly flicked to our table, and in that fleeting second, I swore her smile tightened, sharp as a knife, before softening back into perfection. It was so quick, anyone else would have missed it. But not me. My blood ran cold. I pulled Leo close to me, wrapping one arm protectively around his small shoulders. He pressed his face into my side, still trembling, his voice a fragile thread. "Grandma, please don't let them make me eat it, please." "I won't," I promised, though my throat ached and my palms were slick with sweat. "Not while I'm breathing." The boy's trust in me felt heavier than any crown, heavier than any burden I'd ever carried, and in that instant I knew. This was not just about shrimp on a plate. This was war, disguised in lace and roses. I tucked the note into my palm, crumpling it so tightly that the paper cut into my skin. The sting grounded me, reminding me I wasn't dreaming, that this nightmare was very real. My instincts screamed that if I stayed silent, if I let fear muzzle me, I would regret it forever. So, I sat there, heart pounding, preparing for what I knew must come next. I would rise, in front of every guest, in front of my son and his smiling bride, and I would rip the mask off this carefully staged performance. Tonight would not end in silence, because this was only the beginning. The moment I clutched that paper at the wedding, my mind didn't just stay in the glowing ballroom, it dragged me backward through time, into the years of love and loss that had led us here. You see, Ava was not Alex's first wife, and Leo was not her child. Before Ava ever set foot in our lives, there was Maria. Maria was like sunlight in human form. The first time Alex brought her home, she entered my modest kitchen with her brown hair tied in a loose braid, carrying a warm casserole dish she had baked herself. She placed it on the counter, laughed shyly, and said, "I thought maybe I could win you over with food, Mrs. Williams." From that moment, she didn't need to win me over, she already had. I remember evenings in their small Phoenix house, the scent of chili simmering on the stove, Leo's baby laughter echoing through the hallway as Maria crouched down on the rug, stacking blocks with him. She was gentle, patient, the kind of mother who cut fruit into tiny shapes just to make her child smile. Watching her, I often thought, my son is the luckiest man alive. But luck is fragile. It shatters with one phone call. I was washing dishes when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was flat, professional, almost cruel in its lack of emotion. "Mrs. Williams, we regret to inform you, there has been an accident." My knees nearly gave out. The plate I was holding slipped and smashed on the floor. Maria had been driving home from the grocery store when a truck lost control on the highway. She never made it back. The funeral was drenched in rain. The sky itself seemed to weep. I remember standing under my umbrella, holding 4-year-old Leo in my arms, his small voice trembling as he asked, "Grandma, where is Mommy?" How do you explain death to a child who still believes monsters hide under the bed, but that his mother will always be there to chase them away? I kissed his damp hair and whispered, "She's in a beautiful place, my love," even as my chest cracked open inside me. Alex was unrecognizable that day. He stood at the coffin, his shoulders hunched, his face pale, unable to even form words. It was as though Maria had taken half of his soul with her, leaving behind a shell of the man I once knew. From then on, he buried himself in work. Long hours at the office, empty dinners at home, nights when he stumbled in after midnight with exhaustion written across his face. That meant Leo fell into my care. I became mother and grandmother all at once. Nights were the hardest. I would tuck him into bed, and before I turned off the light, his tiny voice would always ask, "Grandma, tell me a story about Mommy." And so, I would. I told him about how Maria used to hum lullabies while folding laundry, how she danced barefoot in the kitchen when no one was watching, how she kissed him every morning as though it might be the last time. My throat often tightened, but I forced myself to smile, because those stories were the only bridge keeping Maria alive for him. In those dark years, one light shone steadily. Lucy. She wasn't my daughter by blood, but by choice. I had adopted her when she was young, and though she was older than Leo by nearly a decade, she treated him like her little brother. She arrived with coloring books, baked cookies with him, and sat for hours at the table guiding his wobbly handwriting across lined paper. "Look, Leo," she would laugh, "your house drawing is better than mine." And Leo, shy smile on his lips, would beam back at her with rare happiness. Yet I noticed something else. Whenever Alex walked into the room tired, silent, still wearing his office suit, Lucy's eyes followed him. Not in the way a sister might watch a brother, but softer, deeper. A gaze she quickly hid when anyone could notice. I never mentioned it aloud. Maybe I was afraid of stirring something fragile, of adding one more complication to an already fragile family. Life became survival. Alex in his office, me in the kitchen, Lucy helping with schoolwork, Leo clinging to his toy car as though it were an anchor. We tried to stitch together normality with bedtime stories and shared meals, but the wound of Maria's death never fully closed. And that was the soil in which Ava planted herself. She entered our lives years later, with her perfect lipstick smile and carefully rehearsed charm, just as Alex was most vulnerable, desperate to feel alive again. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder, if Maria had lived, if Leo had never lost his mother, would that folded slip of paper ever have appeared under our wedding table? Would Ava have ever had the chance to touch our lives? But grief is a thief. It leaves doors unlocked, hearts exposed, and hope too easily manipulated. That night, clutching the poisonous note in my palm, I thought of Maria. I thought of the promises I had made to her memory, the nights I whispered to her son that his mother would always protect him through me. I knew then I would not allow another woman to harm him, not while I was breathing. When Alex first brought Ava to meet me, I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to believe my son could finally find a second chance at happiness after Maria's death. That evening, I stood in the kitchen, wiping my hands on my apron, my heart pounding like a drum. Alex leaned against the doorway, his eyes glowing in a way I hadn't seen since his youth. "Mom," he said softly, "I want you to meet someone." She appeared in a pale blue dress, her hair styled in perfect waves that framed her face, her lips painted red like she had stepped straight out of a magazine cover. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Williams," she said, bowing her head slightly with a smile that seemed rehearsed. Her voice was sweet, her manners impeccable, but something in her presence felt staged, like an actress stepping onto a stage. We sat down to dinner: tacos, enchiladas, mango salad I had spent all afternoon preparing. Ava praised each dish, gushing, "You must teach me your recipes, Mrs. Williams." Her compliments rolled easily off her tongue, too polished, too calculated. I forced myself to smile and thanked her, but my eyes kept flicking to Leo, sitting at the head of the table, uncharacteristically quiet. Normally he would chatter endlessly about school, about drawings, about the neighbor's cat. But that night, he simply pushed food around his plate. Then Ava leaned forward, pulling a chocolate bar from her purse, placing it in front of him with a wide smile. "This is for you, Leo. My favorite." Her voice dripped with sugary sweetness. But Leo froze. His little hands gripped his fork tightly, and then, without a word, he turned his face away. Ava's smile faltered for just a second before she forced it back onto her lips. Alex frowned, ready to scold his son for being rude, but I quickly intervened. "He's just tired, son. Leave him be." I saw the flash of relief in Leo's eyes. Lucy, my adopted daughter, was at the table too. She stayed quiet, but her gaze darkened every time Ava touched Alex's hand under the table. Lucy had always loved Alex like family, but sometimes the way her eyes lingered told me her feelings were deeper, more complicated. That night, when Ava took Alex's hand, Lucy's fingers tightened around her glass until her knuckles turned white. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any protest. As time passed, Ava slipped deeper into our lives. She arrived one Saturday morning with a bright smile, announcing she wanted to take Leo to the park. "Fresh air will do him good," she chirped. Against my instincts, I agreed. When they returned, Ava was radiant, claiming he had so much fun, wouldn't stop going down the slide. But when I looked at Leo, dirt streaked across his shirt. He was silent, clutching his toy car with a faraway look in his eyes. "Did you have fun, my love?" I asked. He just nodded faintly, avoiding my eyes. Another day, I overheard her voice in the living room while I chopped onions in the kitchen. At first it was soft, coaxing, but then it snapped, sharp as glass. "Stay still, Leo. Don't make a mess. You're not a baby anymore." My hands froze, the knife still pressing against the onion. I rushed out, but by then her voice had morphed back into honey. "Look, Mrs. Williams, what a clever boy he built, such a tall tower." She smiled sweetly, but Leo's lips were pressed into a thin line, his eyes darting toward me, silently pleading. Leo's 7th birthday should have been joyful. Lucy baked a big chocolate cake, Leo's favorite, with 7 candles flickering on top. He squealed with joy, hugging her tightly. "Aunt Lucy, this is the best cake ever." His laughter filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. But Ava stood in the corner, clapping half-heartedly, her smile stretched too thin. Her only gift was a dismissive pat on Leo's shoulder and a flat, "Happy birthday, champ." I saw Leo's small body shrink, the light fading from his eyes again. My chest ached with fury, but I bit my tongue. It wasn't just me noticing anymore. One afternoon, Leo's teacher pulled me aside at pickup. "Mrs. Williams," she said gently, "Leo seems quieter, more withdrawn lately. Is something happening at home?" My heart sank. I wanted to protect him, to explain, but instead I forced a smile. "It's just been a hard year. He'll be okay." But when we walked home, Leo tugged on my sleeve. His voice was small, trembling. "Grandma, I don't want to go home with Miss Ava." I stopped in my tracks. My knees almost buckled. "Why, sweetheart?" I asked, kneeling down to meet his clear eyes. He shook his head firmly. She doesn't love me. His certainty was sharper than any blade. Lucy heard it too. She turned away, her shoulders quivering, as if she were holding back tears. And me? I told myself I couldn't jump to conclusions. I told myself maybe Ava just wasn't used to children. I told myself Alex deserved happiness. But late at night, when the house was quiet, I lay awake with dread gnawing at my chest. It wasn't until the wedding night, when I unfolded that poisonous slip of paper under the glowing candlelight, that all those small, scattered signs aligned into a deadly truth. The ballroom shimmered that night like something out of a dream. Chandeliers spilled golden light across polished marble floors. Guests laughed, glasses clinked, and the jazz band's soft notes floated like a spell of joy and celebration. For everyone else, it was perfect. For me, it was a battlefield. I sat at table 8, with Leo by my side, Lucy just across from him. Leo's small hands pushed his red toy car across the white tablecloth, vrooming softly, trying to block out the noise. I kept glancing at him, my heart swelling with both tenderness and worry. Every flicker of his big brown eyes reminded me of Maria and the promise I had made to protect him. Then came the moment. The toy car slipped from Leo's grip, tumbling onto the floor. He crouched down to pick it up, but froze. His wide eyes locked on something under the table. When he rose, his little fingers clutched a folded slip of paper, his face pale. He leaned close, his whisper urgent. "Grandma, let's go. Please." I took the note with trembling hands, unfolding it under the candlelight. Table 8 adds shrimp to the child's serving. My blood ran cold. Leo's allergy was life-threatening. Everyone knew. This wasn't an accident. This was an execution order. The noise of the ballroom faded into a suffocating silence in my ears. My chest burned as I crumpled the note, holding it so tight it cut into my palm. I looked across the room. Alex, my son, beamed in his navy blue suit, raising his glass to his co-workers. Ava, dazzling in her wedding gown, laughed with bridesmaids, her wine glass never empty. For just an instant, her eyes met mine, and her smile tightened sharp, calculating before melting back into perfection. Rage boiled inside me. I turned to Lucy. "Take care of Leo," I whispered. Her eyes widened at the fear in my voice, but she nodded, wrapping her arms protectively around the boy. I rose and strode toward the back of the hall, where waiters lingered near the bar. My pulse hammered. I shoved the paper in front of one of them, a young man named David who had served our table earlier. "Who gave you this?" I demanded. His face drained of color. He stammered. "My God, I dropped it by mistake. A woman gave it to me and told me to pass it to the chef." "Which woman?" I pressed, my voice shaking with fury. "I don't know her name," he whispered, eyes darting. "She was at one of the tables. I swear I didn't know about any allergy." His panic was real. He was just a pawn. I returned to the ballroom, fire surging through my veins. I wouldn't let this pass in silence. Not tonight. Not ever. I stood, holding the paper high, my voice cutting across music and chatter. "Before anyone touches their food," I announced, "I have something to say." The hall fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned to me. The band stopped. Leo's small body pressed into Lucy's arms. "This note," I said, my voice trembling but clear, "was found under our table. It instructs the chef to add shrimp to my grandson's meal. My grandson is severely allergic. A single bite could kill him." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Alex rushed to me, confusion on his face. "Mom, what is this?" "Read it," I snapped, pushing the paper into his hands. His eyes scanned the words. His face went white. His lips parted, but no words came out. He looked at Leo, at me, then across the room, as if searching for answers in faces that had none. Ava approached gracefully, her expression carefully composed. "What is going on?" she asked sweetly, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of panic. "Surely this is some kind of joke." "A joke?" My voice cracked. "My grandson's life is not a joke." Ava's lips curved into a mocking smile. "There's no name on that note. For all we know, it was planted by someone trying to ruin our wedding. Are you really going to believe a child and a piece of paper over common sense?" Some guests nodded uncertainly. Whispers rose. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Who would do such a thing at a wedding? Then Lucy stood. Her face was pale, her fists clenched. She handed Leo to a relative, walked straight up to Ava, and without hesitation slapped her across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the hall. "That's enough." Lucy's voice was sharp, icy. "You wanted to hurt him. You tried to kill an innocent child." Ava staggered back, her hand flying to her cheek. Gasps erupted around us. "She's crazy," Ava cried, turning to Alex. "She's jealous, she's obsessed with you, and now she's trying to destroy me." But before she could spin more lies, another voice cut through the room. Trembling, tearful Gloria, Ava's younger sister, barely 18. "It wasn't me," she cried. I didn't know what was on the note. Ava gave it to me and told me to pass it to the waiter." The hall erupted. Guests gasped. A woman clutched her pearls. A man shook his head in disgust. Ava's perfect mask cracked. Her face twisted in rage. "Shut up, Gloria! How dare you lie about your own sister?" But Gloria sobbed harder. "I'm not lying. I only did what you asked." The truth was out. The web of lies was torn open in front of everyone. Lucy stepped forward again, her voice steady as steel. "If you keep denying it, we can ask the staff to check the security cameras. They'll show exactly who passed the note." A hush fell over the ballroom. Ava's face drained of color. Her lips trembled, but no words came. The silence itself was her confession. Alex stood frozen, the paper trembling in his hands, his eyes flicking between Ava, Gloria, and Leo. His mouth opened, but no sound came. The truth was sinking in, and with it, the collapse of everything he thought he had rebuilt. This was no misunderstanding. This was betrayal unmasked in front of everyone. The ballroom had never been so silent. The chandeliers still glittered above. The band's instruments hung in the air like frozen ghosts, and every guest's gaze burned into Ava. The note, crumpled in Alex's shaking hand, was no longer just paper. It was proof, poison, and betrayal all at once. Leo clung to Lucy's arm, his little chest rising and falling in panicked breaths. My own heart thundered so hard I thought the entire room must hear it. I looked at my son, Alex, who stood pale as marble, staring at the woman he had just called his wife. "Ava," he whispered, his voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me my sister is lying. Tell me my own mother isn't right." Ava's lips trembled, her eyes darting around like a cornered animal searching for escape. She reached for Alex's arm, her nails painted blood red against the crisp navy of his suit. "Darling, you can't believe this," she said with desperate sweetness. "It's all a plot. They've hated me from the beginning. Your mother, your sister, even your son. They want to tear us apart." But the words rang hollow. Whispers swelled around the tables like a rising tide. How could she target a child? Unthinkable on her wedding day. What kind of woman does that? I could feel the disgust simmering among the guests. The betrayal cutting deeper because they had witnessed the laughter, the toasts, the charade just moments ago. Lucy stepped forward, her voice like ice slicing through the murmurs. "Enough lies. Look at Leo." She held the boy closer, his trembling small hand gripping her dress. "Tell him to his face that you didn't plan to hurt him. Look him in the eye." For the first time, Ava faltered. Her gaze flicked to the child, and in that momentary hesitation, everyone saw it. The crack, the fear, the guilt. Her perfect mask had shattered. Alex staggered back as if struck. He pressed the note flat against the table with shaking hands, his eyes wet. "You tried to kill my son," he said, his voice hoarse. "My son, Ava, at our wedding." His voice broke on the last word and tears streamed down his cheeks. A guest, an older uncle, stood suddenly, slamming his fist on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "This is wickedness. I won't stand in the same room with it." His outrage ignited the room. Other voices rose in disgust. "A child! She should be ashamed. This is monstrous." Ava tried one last time, her voice shrill and desperate. "You're all fools. There's no proof. This was planted to ruin me." But even her younger sister Gloria, still sobbing, repeated, "You gave me that note, Ava. I only did what you asked." The final blow. Ava's face contorted, her painted smile collapsing into raw fury. "You little traitor," she hissed at Gloria. But no one defended her now. Even her closest bridesmaids shifted away, their champagne glasses trembling in their hands. Then Alex, my broken-hearted son, fell to his knees in front of Leo. He cupped his boy's tear-streaked face in both hands, his shoulders shaking. "Son," he whispered, choking on the words. "I failed you. I should have protected you. Forgive me, Leo." The sight crushed me. For so long Alex had buried his grief, but here, in front of everyone, his armor cracked, and all that was left was a father begging forgiveness from his child. I put a trembling hand on his shoulder. "We stopped it in time," I said, my voice steady though my body shook. "That's what matters." Security arrived, summoned quietly by hotel staff who had been watching from the corners. Two men in dark suits stepped forward, their voices polite but firm. "Ma'am, you need to leave the premises." "No!" Ava shrieked, clutching the edge of the table like a drowning woman. "This is my wedding. He's my husband." Her voice dissolved into hysterics, but no one moved to help her. Guests turned their faces away. Some shook their heads. Others muttered prayers under their breath, as though warding off the evil they had just witnessed. "Your wedding is over," I said firmly, rising to my full height. My voice cut through her cries. "Anyone who tries to harm my grandson will never set foot in this family again." The guards took her arms, and though she thrashed, screaming Alex's name, she was dragged toward the door. Her white dress, once dazzling, trailed like a ghost behind her. She twisted one last time, her eyes full of venom, but Alex didn't even look at her. His gaze was on Leo, and only Leo. The heavy doors closed behind her. The room exhaled in a collective gasp, like a curse had been lifted. But the damage lingered in every stunned face, every shattered champagne glass, every whispered word of disbelief. Alex sank into his chair, head in his hands, shoulders trembling. Leo crawled onto his lap and hugged him tightly, whispering, "Daddy." I was scared. Alex wept openly, clutching his boy as though he would never let go again. I stood beside them, a fierce determination burning in my chest. This battle was over, but the war to heal my family had only just begun. In the days after that nightmare of a wedding, our house became unbearably quiet. The phones rang constantly, relatives, neighbors, even distant acquaintances calling to gossip, to ask questions, to pretend sympathy while secretly savoring the scandal. Every ring was another reminder of betrayal. I answered less and less, letting the machine collect their voices like dust. Alex moved through the house like a shadow. The vibrant man who had once walked into rooms with laughter was gone. He carried Leo to school in the mornings, cooked nothing but burned toast at night, and sat at the table staring at his hands as though they belonged to someone else. I would catch him sometimes, looking at his wedding ring, twisting it off, then sliding it back on, torn between anger and shame. The name Ava was never spoken. It hovered like smoke, choking us, but none of us dared to breathe it. Leo clung to me, but more than anyone, he clung to Lucy. She became his anchor. Every morning she packed his lunch, carefully labeling everything to reassure his teachers. No shrimp, no seafood. She even slipped in little drawings, a smiling sun, a kite, a stick figure of herself holding Leo's hand. He'd open the box at school, grin ear to ear, and show his friends. "My Aunt Lucy drew this," he'd boast, pride glowing in his small chest. In the afternoons she'd take him to the park. I'd watch from the porch sometimes, knitting, as their laughter carried across the yard. Lucy running beside him, kite string in her hand, Leo shouting with joy as the kite soared into the sky. It was the kind of sound I thought we had lost forever, a child's pure laughter, free of fear. One night, when Leo spiked a fever, Lucy stayed by his side all night. She sat in a chair, damp cloth in her hand, whispering stories about brave sparrows who flew through storms but always found their way home. I stood silently in the doorway, tears in my eyes. Alex, too, hovered in the shadows of the hall, his face tight with guilt but softened by awe. He watched Lucy care for his son with a devotion that needed no performance, no perfection, just love. Weeks passed, and slowly, the scars began to heal. Then came the night that changed everything. We were eating dinner together. Simple pasta I had cooked, the steam fogging my glasses. Out of nowhere, Leo put down his fork, looked up with those wide, honest eyes and said clearly, "I want Aunt Lucy to be my mommy." The fork clattered from Alex's hand. Lucy froze, her cheeks flushing crimson. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the old kitchen clock. My heart squeezed, torn between joy and sorrow. Alex swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Son, are you sure?" Leo nodded solemnly. "She takes care of me. She makes me happy." Lucy lowered her head, hiding tears. Alex reached across the table, his hand trembling, and gently touched hers. For the first time since that cursed wedding, I saw his eyes soften not with the false glow Ava had lit, but with something real. Gratitude, recognition, hope. Later, after Leo fell asleep, Alex came to me in the living room. His voice was raw, unsteady. "Mom, I was blind. I let grief and loneliness make me desperate. I put my son in danger." He paused, swallowing hard. "But I can't ignore what's right in front of me anymore. Lucy has been here for us all along. I don't want to lose her too." I placed my hands on his shoulders, tears running freely. "Son, true happiness doesn't come from glittering gowns or grand weddings. It comes from hearts that choose each other, day after day." He nodded, and for the first time in years I believed he truly heard me. Time moved forward. Ava vanished from our lives like a bad dream, her name nothing more than a stain we refused to touch. Slowly, our home filled again with warmth. Leo played in the yard with his red toy car, Lucy's laughter chasing him. Alex stood nearby, watching them both with a smile that was no longer forced. One evening, Alex finally took Lucy's hand in front of me. His voice was steady this time. "Mom, I don't want to make the same mistake twice. I want to hold on to the person who has already been family." Lucy blushed, her smile glowing brighter than any jewel. And I? I simply wept, not from grief this time, but from relief. That night, as I watched the silver moon spread its light across the yard, I whispered to myself, family isn't always written in blood. Sometimes it's chosen. Sometimes it's forged in fire, in the darkest nights when we protect one another from harm. Maria's absence will always be a wound, but love true. Selfless love has a way of stitching even the deepest scars. So I ask you, the one hearing my story, if you were in my place, would you have stayed silent to preserve appearances? Or would you have stood, even if your voice shook, to protect the innocent? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, so stories like this one can reach people everywhere who need to hear that courage is always worth it. Because in the end, that's what saved my grandson, courage, and I will never regret it.